Hello and welcome to the Sunday Guardian podcast by Joyita Basu. At a time when there is, quote unquote, some kind of an agreement between India and China about patrolling along the line of actual control, at a time when Donald Trump has become US president, what exactly is the way forward in terms of India-China relations, in terms of US-China relations, and what is happening inside China about Xi Jinping, about the hold he has on power? To discuss all this and much more, I've got a very special guest with me, Professor B.R. Deepak. He is professor in Chinese studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Now, he is also the author of several books, including books he has translated from Chinese. Now, his forthcoming book in 2 volumes is titled Rising India and China, Strategic Rivalry in the Himalayas and Indo-Pacific. Now, Professor Deepak, he specializes in India-China relations since China's emergence as a major power, as well as China's internal dynamics. So there is no one better than him to discuss all the issues that we will discuss today. Professor Deepak, thank you for coming to the show.
Pleasure, Joyita.
Yeah. Now, my first question, obviously, is about the India-China so-called border agreement that has happened, which China, by the way, is not, mentioning as an agreement, but calling a resolution. So what exactly is going on there? And does this actually mean peace? What is the way forward?
Yeah, basically it doesn't matter whether you call it a resolution or patrolling arrangement or agreement. But I think the fact is that both sides, so they have realized that it's time to make peace along the borders after 4.5 years. And I think from Indian perspective, it is a very good step because, the status quo ante, I won't agree in totality, but then sort of like it has been restored as far as patrolling rights of India are concerned. So why? Because if we see, the Chinese deployment at Y Junction,
Okay.
so that had been dismantled. It was.
If you can just explain to our viewers a little bit about what exactly the Y junction is.
So, Y Junction is an area, where the west of it has almost 38 square kilometers of land, and it is. You can say along the estuary of Rakinala.
It's in basically that Depsang area.
It is in the Depsang area. And in fact, it was after 2020, the Galwan, the Chinese, so they established a post there at Y Junction. As a result, patrolling by the Indian side, it was totally blocked.
Right.
So that means, if we wanted to patrol on point 10, they're called PPs, patrolling point. Patrolling point 10,
yes.
Patrolling point 11, 11A, 12, and 13. So these are the 5 big, patrolling points and involves an area of almost 970 square kilometers. So this was denied to us. And there are, certain points in Damchok also to the south of it. So 2 areas, which of course the Chinese are not talking about, but Chinese, they do admit that they have dismantled their post at Y Junction, and as a result, so Indians, so they have already, restored patrolling of this entire area. And if you take into account, some of the areas in the south of it, that is Damchok primarily. So that is also a huge area, almost 1,000 square kilometers. So if you put these 2 areas together, so roughly it is around 1,900 square kilometers of area, so which India was not been able to patrol, post Galwan 2020. So this agreement, patrolling arrangement, if we say, this has made these areas once again accessible to India. But, there is a caveat which Indian newspapers, so they are not talking about. Since I, go through the Chinese sources and what they are talking about, what they are debating and discussing, it appears from these posts so there is a trade-off. So why Chinese? So they accepted this kind of arrangement in Western sector. So they are hinting that India has allowed patrolling in Yangtze area, which again is the area of almost 38 square kilometers. And you remember in 2022, December 2022, there were skirmishes between India and China in Yangtze area. So according to Chinese reports, so they are saying that
where exactly is the Yangtze area?
It is in the eastern sector.
Arunachal.
Yeah, it is to the north of Tawang, we can say, yeah. So this area, according to the Chinese reports, so we had made a trade-off, so India would patrol areas which we pointed to in the western sector under, mutual agreement, and the Chinese, so they would patrol this area, some of the area, especially in Yangtze waterfall area. And some reports are also saying maybe upper Subansiri, regions in, again, our eastern sector or Arunachal Pradesh. So this is the ground reality at this point in time as far as this border arrangement is concerned. But I think it is a tactical move by both India and China at this point in time. And I think it has brought certain thaw to the relationship. And I think very soon our NSA and Chinese NSA, they would be meeting. And of course, visa regime has been relaxed. And there are reports that from 1st of January, it would be opened up to the Chinese visitor to India. And perhaps next step would be the restoration of flights between India and China. And meanwhile, as we discussed, the trade as such, it is going on. In fact, we have seen a massive jump in bilateral trade, even if the relationship has remained sour.
Now, when we are talking about trade, okay, fine, I'll take up the point about trade. There's always the fear that when it comes to trade, China has the upper hand and it kind of resorts to dumping practices. So is that the case? How will India counter it? And it is a fact that China has killed the manufacturing sector in many, many countries.
I think that is a big concern, not only in India, but also globally. And I think the facts are in front of us. If you see the kind of manufacturing capacity or capability China has built, they are massive. And of course, they have been propped up by the Western technology, FDI, so on and so forth. And it is estimated that by 2030, they would almost account for more than 50% of the global manufacturing output. And if you compare between India and China, then naturally, I think their manufacturing value output, it is much, much higher. It is almost $5 trillion. And if we compare it with India, ours is only less than $500 billion. So it is massive, almost 10 times bigger than us. So therefore, I think the kind of decoupling or de-risking we are talking about, this is not going to happen for simple reasons that, we rely on China for many, you can say, goods. So if you see the goods trade of China, these are the recent figure in the first 10 months of 2024, they have traded almost, $5 trillion of goods. And then you can say ASEAN is their largest trading partner, followed by EU, not the United States. United States is the third largest trading partner, and then followed by rest of the Belt and Road countries, which are again huge, so almost $2.2 trillion at this point in time. So therefore, so to say that so China these overcapacities so they would be curtailed by way of putting more tariffs, or I would say so to decouple altogether. So this I don't see as happening. Even if we take example of our telecom sector, 80% of the products, so they are being you can say 80% of the market it is dominated by the Chinese telecom brands in India, and electronics is no different. So if we see the kind of imports India does from China in electronic sector, so it is massive. It is almost 50%. It used to be higher at almost 62%, but I think they are routing it through Vietnam and some other countries, so it has come down to 49 point some percent. So given the structure of trade between India and China, I think it is going to be extremely difficult for India not to rely on Chinese supply chain, not to rely on Chinese products in the medium term, I would say. I think in the long term, so as we are rightly moving that direction, we are propping up our manufacturing capabilities. For example, so China used to be very, very sarcastic about India's manufacturing capabilities. They used to say, you see, the case of iPhones manufacturing, India can never do it. Foxconn is not going to relocate to India. But in the last 3 years, 22 to 2024 now, so it has happened. And if you see the kind of export which is happening from India globally, it is accounting for almost $14 billion US. So which is a big shock to the Chinese maybe policymakers or even the leadership, and those who thought that India cannot be next China. But I think if we recalibrate our policies and take advantage of the international environment, which I believe is extremely favorable to India at this point in time, then I think in the long run, I'm not talking about short term and medium term, we would be able to prop up our manufacturing. And I think it is in this context that some of the Chinese in academia, so they are already pointing out that India's manufacturing is going to pose a challenge to China's national security.
Do they actually believe that?
At this point in time, they don't. But I think they take cues from the kind of investment the U.S., European Union, and even Taiwan. So they made in China. It really propped up China's manufacturing, and the kind of capabilities they have made, the kind of monopolies they have created in manufacturing supply chains. So they believe that if they are transferred to countries like Vietnam and India, so at least half the capabilities of the Chinese, it would be lost. And in long run, it could pose a challenge. So they believe that in short terms, it's not going, to affect China in a big way. As we have said, the kind of manufacturing value they have at this point in time, it is 10 times higher than India. So therefore, in order to catch up with this kind of massive output value, I think we need to recalibrate our policy and take advantage of the various things which we could domestically as well as internationally.
So if China starts, it has been in fact, considers India as a challenge, all the more reason why this peace is not going to hold. So can we talk about that whatever we have, it's all very momentary right now. We have managed the relationship to a small extent, to a limited extent, but China is not our friend. If you look at the LAC and the other side, the kind of infrastructure they have built, That's not friendly at all. That does not give the the vibe of being that we want peace. That's all very warlike infrastructure that is building that has happened. So what exactly, there's some sort of a dichotomy here. So what exactly is it going on?
I think, so we have to see how the powers rise, So China has risen. It has abridged its manufacturing capabilities, technological capabilities with the West. And you can see, the kind of sectors, and especially the new three, they call it, EVs, photovoltaic cells and lithium-ion batteries. So these are the new three which China believe that it has ruled the roost, globally. And it is for this reason, the major players in the West, so they are very, very apprehensive of China. And China believes, so they have moved up in the ladder in the supply chains, and has left behind, the Western countries who first made breakthrough in these technologies. I think China's advantage lies in the fact that it universalizes the technology for its own good, and then it starts to export these technologies worldwide. Coming back to India and China, I think the border settlement or the agreement, resolution, whatever we call it, so it is temporary. It is tactical from the Chinese as well as from the Indian side.
Okay.
Why? Because the kind of structural problems which lies at the core of India-China relations, they have not been resolved. And these are border itself, because LAC has not been identified.
Right.
There are problems. For example, we talked about this Y junction, 38 square kilometers area west to Y junction to Bursa, so where we have our deployment. And this area is claimed by China and wanted to stretch its, you can say, so-called line of actual control, so to this Bursa, which and then to the west of it is our this Darbuk Shiok DBO, road which we have built. But I think as far as infrastructure development is concerned, China on their side, so they have built state-of-the-art infrastructure. The deployment is very, very quick. And China knows it, and we have seen it, how things unfolded in 2020 April, and we were taken by surprise. And on the other hand, I think India perhaps need to take cue from Chinese infrastructure development in the border area. I have to admit that we have been very slow, Of the 72 border infrastructure which we have been talking about for many years, only you can say 70-80% have been completed so far. These have not been completed.
I think only in the last 10 years this has happened.
So just to mention about this road, this Darbuk Shiok DOB road, it took us almost 2 decades to build it. This is not the way. So we should be moving to enhance our infrastructure capabilities in the border area. But yes, as you said, that in the last decade or so we have enhanced our capabilities, and this shows that there is a push to match the Chinese infrastructure capabilities, whether it is the opening of the Sela tunnel, so which will be very, very advantageous to Indian troop deployment positions in eastern sector, and also some of the other areas in western sector. For example, early this summer, Prime Minister inaugurated the Shinkula tunnel. Of course, the work has to be commenced. But anyhow, the opening has been done. But I think more has to be done if we really, would like to match the Chinese capabilities, because the kind of money China is spending on border, including these so-called border villages, it is huge. So if we take into account of the kind of money they have spent in the last 2 5-year plans, so it amounts almost to 29 billion US dollars, which is massive. I think it ultimately translates into your economic heft. So if you have the economic heft, then you can spend, you can prop up your defense capabilities. You see, the kind of new technology they have unveiled during the Zhuhai air show, including the stealth J-35. So I think we have to tread a long way, before we catch up with China. But having said that, I think since we know that there is a huge gap, between India's GDP and China's GDP, but we may not be able to match, China from weapon to weapon perspective. So it is impossible. So therefore, some other ways, for example, asymmetrical set-off has to be considered when we are talking about meeting the China challenge.
So what are these asymmetrical? This is a question bound to arise.
Of course, nuclear submarine is one. I think we need to focus on that, where we would be having, stealth capability to have a surprise attack, and also to realize the ambition of our nuclear tyrant. I think that is also important. And then the kind of new technologies which are being exhibited during Middle East war and also in Ukraine-Russia conflict, the kind of drone technologies are being used, AI being used. I think we really need to be moving very, very quickly in these directions.
It's very ironic if you look at it this way, here we are talking about a thaw, if not a peace, but at the same time we are talking in terms of arming ourselves to the teeth. Because, so I think that is the fundamental problem with India-China relations. And in fact, if you're talking about the structural problems about India-China relations, I think looking at that, will China ever allow India to become a member of the Security Council with full veto power?
I think no. So
that kind of settles the question.
To be very frank, ultimately, I think it is the comprehensive national strength, that determines your position globally, and also regionally. And the kind of structural problems I was mentioning, to whether it is the border, whether it is China-Pakistan nexus. Whether it is, you can say Tibet issue. So these are some of the very structural problems, and also new dimensions have been added to these. For example, Indo-Pacific strategy. So where we are a very, very important player, whether the other pillars of Indo-Pacific strategy like Quad, like AUKUS, though we are not in AUKUS, but then, so these are a part and parcel of the Indo-Pacific strategy. So build, act, so on and so forth. I think so China is apprehensive of India in these areas, and believes that, it is hand in glove with the United States containment of China's strategy.
If you can quickly mention what is the economic situation inside China? Could that also have I would say, propelled China to agree to some sort of a a resolution or agreement, whatever, along the border? Is that a possibility?
To some extent, I would say, it could be interpreted that way, because the kind of economic slowdown China has seen, it is one of the realities. They have been grappling with the real estate bubble bust. They have been dealing with the debt crisis flared up by the property slump in China, or bust. So this has created a lot of problem. As a result, the kind of investment, which was one of the one of the engines of Chinese growth in all these decades. So that has slowed down, and if we see the accumulated investment in China for the first 10 months, so it has drastically reduced year-to-year basis to the tune of 28.98%, almost 30%, that is massive. So that means the kind of money China used to invest, it is not happening, Second, of course, there is also consumption problem in China. The way domestic consumption is happening, it is not happening,
Why is it that?
The way it happened, of course, the property crisis is one of the issues because 70% of the Chinese investment was parked in the property sector.
Yes.
So now it has burst, and they have become defaulters. So they have not been able to repay their bank loans. Almost 200 million plus people, so they have defaulted on their loan payments. So you can imagine, the kind of pressure so they are under. So as a result, you can say the unemployment also, especially in the work group from say 18 to 24, according to the Chinese official figures, it's also very high, around 21%. It could be higher than that. So the social mobility, which was there during the deep globalization, and China was very, very confident of its economy. So that is not happening anymore. So as a result, the Chinese youths, so they are not finding employment, and they are not buying houses, they are not getting married, they are not buying cars, and even you can say the kind of foreign trips Chinese used to make, the kind of Chinese students foreign university used to attract. So that is not happening. You have read the news in today morning. So Indian students United States in the last 15 years, so it has trounced Chinese numbers in a big way. So there is a phenomenon called lying flatism,
Yes.
which is a concern for the Chinese government, and it has affected internal consumption in a big way. But at the same time, I think China is and remains confident about itself because it believes it is a big economy, and it can deal with the challenges. The kind of stimulus it has rolled out, to rejuvenate its economy, it is massive, $1.4 trillion US. I think that has some of the ripple effect on our stocks here, and how we have seen, in the last couple of months, the kind of money had been withdrawn from the Indian markets, perhaps has gone over to China.
Now, amid this, I would say, depression, quote unquote, some kind of a depression that China is going through, what is Xi Jinping's position there? Is he in complete control? Is there any challenge rising to him from inside the CCP? Is the CCP in complete control of the government? And given, we also saw, if you remember, that A4 revolution that we saw during COVID, people actually rose up. Is that a possibility again?
Well, I think Communist Party, is the party in China. It is the only party in China. So we can say that it is in command. And since Xi Jinping, is the General Secretary of the Central Committee, so he rules the roost, So his position is not challenged. But of course, if we talk about political challenges which are thrown by the factions inside China, that there are factions as it is the case everywhere. So I think from that perspective, yes, especially the handling of the economy post-COVID, during and post-COVID, so that has created certain problems for him. And we have seen him, devolving some of the powers, or you can say limelight, so to other people in the Politburo. For example, state councils, powers, they were undermined, and the premier of the state council, it was almost, rendered ineffective in every sense. But now we have seen that, so he is handling and appearing more often in the newspapers also, and on Chinese official media also. And so is the case with, for example, this Zhang Youxia, so who is the chairman of the vice chairman of the CMC. So he has been seen, very, very active. In fact, if you see him visiting Vietnam, and Vietnam, according him, the red carpet welcome. So it also shows that Xi Jinping has, retreated a bit. But this, if we say that, his position has been undermined, I will not agree to that. I think he is secure, and he is also confident the way he is talking. For example, in Lima, right, Peru, he just inaugurated one of the ports built by China there, and the way he was talking to Biden, and flagging off
Yes.
these 4 red lines to Biden. So I think he's still securely in command.
So are we looking at, I think this is his 3rd term. Is he already planning in terms of a 4th?
That
We don't
only
know
the
yet.
time will tell, so we
Yes.
don't know as of now. But surely I think he is there. But then there is social dissent also, as you said, that white paper revolution was there. And recently, if you have seen, so there were 20,000 bikers, so who moved from Zhengzhou to Kaifeng, and covered a distance of 50 kilometers, and there were thousands of them, and it, you can say, threatened, the very nature.
Some kind of an uprising it was. Can we call
I
it?
won't say it was uprising, but it could be translated as a dissent, that people are conveying certain messages. And then during the Zhuhai air show, we have also seen how a 60-year-old person, he rammed his car through the area where people were doing exercises, and some 43 people were killed.
Yes.
So these are kind of, and there's another one, a couple of 1 or 2 days back, another incident. So these are kind of like social, you can say, underpinning, or unrest, or you can say, sort of like revenges the Chinese people. So they are taking, whether they have lost their investment, whether they are unemployed, whether they are disgruntled in one way or another. Earlier during reform period, so this is the new era. So reform period has been differentiated from Xi Jinping's new era. So there used to be these petitioner, platforms or villages. So where the disgruntled people, they used to petition, and then sometimes, central party leadership, they also used to meet them and listen to their grievances. But these kind of grievances now, they are not happening. They're not being listened to. So people, perhaps they are resorting to the kind of things, we have witnessed of late in China. And this shows certain resentment is there in the public.
So not everything is hunky-dory in Xi Jinping's China. Now, my last question is basically about Trump is coming. We all heard what Xi Jinping told Joe Biden, that basically do not escalate things and all. Perhaps it was actually a message to Trump. How do you foresee the relationship between Trump and Xi Jinping, or the US under Trump and China?
I think China knows, what kind of policies Trump is going to formulate, initiate. So they have already geared towards it. So they expect 60% of the tariffs on Chinese imports. And maybe in some cases it could be 200%, if EVs are to be considered. So that is one thing. And on semiconductor, I think Trump is going to be equally harsh on China. The Chinese are preparing for that also. And on Taiwan question again, so these are the questions relating to treaties, you can say trade, and Taiwan, and also technology. So these three things. So I think Trump is going to be equally harsh, but there is a counter view in China. For example, some of the very renowned professors, across China, so they believe Trump's arrival, it will augur well for the relationship, and especially for China. So one, they believe that the kind of alliance Biden built around him and NATO, so that is not going to happen during Trump's time. Secondly, on the question of Taiwan also, since Trump believes that U.S. has to shell a lot more money to protect Taiwan, and Taiwan is not offering any protection fee for that. So maybe it will further the cause of Chinese unification. And some are also arguing that since Trump's policies are polarizing United States, so it will again augur well for China. So we have to see. I think it is going to be very, very turbulent for these turbulent times for these two countries. And Chinese scholars, so they have anticipated that it is going to be turbulent. It is going to be black swan, for China-U.S. relations. And there may be big crisis. So these are the wording of the Chinese scholars. I happened to talk during my recent China visit. So let us see, wait and watch.
Yeah, but interestingly, if you look at Trump, look at the people he has surrounded himself with. Of course, many of them are China hawks. And then there is Elon Musk.
Yeah, of course. Elon has massive stakes in China. 50% of his EVs, so they are produced in China. So therefore, I think he is going to be a very good conduit, between Trump and Xi Jinping, and he has met Xi Jinping. So we have to see. But I think the kind of rivalry, which is already taken shape, and China has been pronounced as a strategic competitor by Trump himself, and he has initiated trade war also. I think it would be very interesting to see in which direction the future relationship it moves.
So basically, we are perhaps headed towards what we can call interesting times in the Chinese sense, which means a lot of turmoil and turbulence. Thank you, Professor, for coming to this show. It was a really, really riveting discussion. I hope you enjoyed it. I
loved it. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay, thank you again. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Until the next time.